They say the night remembers everything. Every whisper, every shadow, every secret you thought was buried deep is still listening. Somewhere just beyond your sight, something waits, patient, silent, hungry. And tonight, it has chosen to remember you. 15 years ago, when arrogance burned brighter than wisdom, I was a man possessed, not by demons of the unseen, but by the intoxicating khayal, the illusion that I was destined for fame. I was never a diligent student. Classrooms were my stage, and laughter was my only weapon. The echoes of my classmates' amusement felt like whispers of destiny, or perhaps, as I would later wonder, whispers of something far more deceptive. While others followed the predictable path of college and stability, I chose the uncertain road, the cursed path of stand-up comedy. I believed I could command laughter like a sorcerer commands fire. But reality was a slow, merciless gin that fed on my failures. For nearly a decade, I wandered from one dimly lit stage to another, chasing approval in smoke-filled rooms where hope withered under harsh silence. The audience's laughter, when it came, felt like forbidden magic, brief, intoxicating, and dangerously addictive. But more often, there was nothing, just silence, heavy, suffocating silence, like standing alone in a grave, waiting for something to answer back. The grind was relentless. Open mics paid nothing but humiliation. Crowds were unpredictable. One moment you followed a broken poet spilling their soul like blood onto the floor. The next, you stood there, expected to be funny in the shadow of their pain. It was a cruel ritual, one that chipped away at the spirit. Still, I endured. Eventually, I began reaching out, desperately, to club promoters and seasoned comedians, hoping for a chance at something bigger. And sometimes, rarely, I was granted that chance. But these opportunities came at a cost. Long drives, empty pockets, endless roads stretching into nowhere, like veins of darkness cutting through forgotten land. I drove for hours, 4, sometimes 5, across state lines, chasing 5 minutes of stage time. 5 minutes to prove I existed. 5 minutes to fight against the invisible curse of obscurity. Then came the opportunity. A competition. 5 hours away. A chance to stand before real comedians, judges who could open doors or seal them forever. The prize money meant nothing to me. What I wanted was recognition, validation, escape from the endless void of failure. But there was something else that night, something unseen, something waiting beyond the road. My car was a dying machine, rusted, unreliable, almost cursed. My phone was no better, a relic that barely clung to life. And deep down, a quiet voice, perhaps a warning, perhaps a curse, kept whispering, "If something happens, no one will find you." I ignored it, because ambition can blind a man, even when darkness is already closing in.
I made the journey alone, as I always did, driving into the unknown with nothing but fragile directions printed from an outdated map. I never bothered to double-check them. That carelessness, That arrogance would lead me somewhere I should never have been. The road stretched endlessly, cutting through barren farmland where even the wind felt hollow, as if it carried whispers of forgotten souls. Time blurred. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in dying shades of al-ahmar ad-damawi, blood red. That was when I realized I was lost. Not slightly lost, completely lost. The roads no longer matched my directions. Landmarks were unfamiliar. The air itself felt heavier, as though I had crossed into a place untouched by time, or worse, abandoned by it. Yet I pressed on, convincing myself it was nothing more than a minor mistake. Eventually, I came upon a town, if it could even be called that. It was a dying stretch of Al-Ard al-Mansiya, forgotten land. A single road, barely a few hundred feet long, lined with crumbling buildings that looked as though they had been rotting for decades. Paint peeled like decaying flesh. Windows stared like hollow eyes. There was no life, only the illusion of it. Except for them. A few people stood outside an old gas station. At first glance, they seemed ordinary. Something was wrong. Their movements were stiff, unnatural, like puppets pulled by invisible strings. Their clothes were dirty, worn beyond neglect, and their faces carried an emptiness I cannot describe. Not sadness, not anger, just absence. Still, I approached them. I had no choice. "Hey," I called out, forcing confidence into my voice. "Can you tell me where I am? Am I on the right road?" They didn't respond immediately. They just stared. Those eyes, those lifeless, unblinking eyes felt like they were peeling something away from me, like they weren't looking at me, but through me, as if searching for something buried beneath my skin. Finally, one of them spoke. His voice was dry, cracked, like something that hadn't been used in years. "You're close." The way he said it sent a chill crawling down my spine. Another man stepped forward, pointing down the road behind me. "You missed your turn," he muttered. "But if you keep going straight, you'll find it." His words felt rehearsed, mechanical, as if spoken not by choice, but by command. I thanked them, though every instinct inside me screamed to leave. While filling my tank, I felt it again, that unbearable sensation of being watched. I glanced over my shoulder. They hadn't moved, not a single inch. 4 of them stood there, completely still, staring at me. No blinking, no shifting, just watching, like sentinels of something ancient, like guardians of a place that should never be found. Cold realization crept into my mind. I didn't belong there. I finished as quickly as I could, my hands trembling slightly. Without another word, I got back into my car and drove away, the engine groaning as if it too wanted to escape. As the town disappeared behind me, I tried to laugh it off, tried to convince myself it was nothing more than an odd encounter. But deep down, something felt wrong. Something had changed. And as the road stretched into the growing darkness, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just crossed paths with something not entirely human, something touched by the unseen realm of the jinn. And worse, I couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't simply let me leave.
They had sent me forward.
The road ahead grew narrower, as if the world itself was closing in around me. Trees replaced the open fields, tall, skeletal things that clawed at the darkening sky. Their shadows stretched across the pavement like black fingers, guiding me deeper into something I could no longer understand. I tried to distract myself. I rehearsed my jokes aloud, forcing laughter into the empty car. I even thought about that strange town, how I could twist the encounter into something funny. But every time I replayed it in my head, the humor died before it could form, because there was nothing funny about those eyes, nothing human. About an hour after leaving that cursed place, a sound broke the silence. A violent roar of an engine. A battered white pickup truck tore past me, moving far too fast for that narrow road. It appeared suddenly and vanished just as quickly into the distance. I barely thought about it. That was my mistake. Dusk had fully surrendered to night by then. The sky turned into a suffocating void, and the only light guiding me came from my weak headlights. The road felt endless, directionless, like I had been pulled into a loop crafted by something ancient, something that fed on confusion. And then it happened. A deafening crack exploded beneath my car. The steering wheel jerked violently in my hands as the vehicle swerved. I fought to control it, heart slamming against my ribs like a trapped animal. The car dragged itself to the side of the road, finally coming to a shuddering stop. Silence followed, heavy, oppressive. I stepped out, my breath visible in the cold night air. The forest around me was unnaturally quiet. No insects, no wind, nothing. Just a suffocating stillness, like the world was holding its breath. When I crouched down to inspect the damage, my blood ran cold. Both front tires were destroyed, not just flat, destroyed. Jagged nails had pierced through the rubber, embedded deep like cursed talismans, several of them, too many to be accidental. They glinted faintly under the weak light, like they had been placed there, deliberately, carefully, as if someone or something had prepared this moment long before I arrived. Chill crawled up my spine. This wasn't bad luck. This was a trap. My hands trembled as I pulled out my useless phone. No signal, of course. I tried calling for help anyway, but the call failed before it even began. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, like the absence of connection had sealed my fate. I swallowed hard and called a friend instead, praying the signal would hold just long enough. I described everything: the road, the strange town, the gas station. My voice shook despite my efforts to stay calm. "I'll try to find you," he said. "Just stay where you are." Stay where I was. The words echoed in my head like a curse. I ended the call and leaned against the car, staring into the darkness. Part of me considered walking back towards that town, but something deep within me, something primal, refused. That place was wrong, so I stayed. Minutes passed, then headlights. Two distant beams appeared behind me, piercing through the darkness like the glowing eyes of some lurking creature. Relief washed over me, brief, fragile. Maybe it was help. Maybe I wasn't alone after all. But the car didn't approach. It stopped, far behind me. The lights remained fixed,
unmoving, blinding. I couldn't see who or what was inside, just those piercing lights, staring, waiting. 5 minutes passed, maybe more. Time felt distorted, like I was caught in some unseen ritual. And then, slowly, the lights began to move, crawling forward, closing the distance. At the same time, another set of headlights appeared ahead of me, rushing towards my stranded car from the opposite direction. My stomach dropped. I was no longer stranded. I was surrounded. The car in front stopped abruptly, its engine growling like a beast. Doors creaked open, echoing unnaturally in the silent forest. And then I saw it, the white pickup truck, the same one that had passed me earlier. A cold, suffocating realization took hold of me. This wasn't coincidence. This was hunting. Before I could react, a violent bang exploded against my driver's window. I turned, and my heart nearly stopped. It was him, one of the men from the gas station. His face pressed close to the glass, those same empty eyes staring into mine. But now there was something else behind them. Something feral, something possessed, something that did not belong to this world.
The man's face remained inches from mine, pressed against the cold glass of the window. His breath fogged it slowly, rhythmically, like something savoring the moment before the kill. His eyes, those hollow, lifeless voids, were no longer empty. They were awake, not with humanity, but with something ancient, something vile, something that whispered of Al-Jinn al-Mudlam, dark Jinn, and forgotten rituals buried beneath the earth. Without warning, he yanked at the door handle, once, twice, again and again, violently, desperately, like a beast trying to tear open a cage. The entire car shook under his force. My breath caught in my throat as I fumbled to ensure the lock was engaged. Then another sound, a second presence. I turned my head just in time to see another figure emerge from the shadows on the passenger side. Another man from the gas station. His movements were jerky, unnatural, like his limbs didn't quite belong to him. He began pulling at the passenger door, hard, relentless. Both sides of the car were under attack. I shouted at them to stop, my voice cracking under fear, but they didn't react, not to my words, not to my screams. It was as if they couldn't understand me, or worse, as if I wasn't speaking their language at all, because whatever they were no longer entirely human. The man at my window suddenly stopped. Everything stopped. For a brief, suffocating moment, there was silence. He just stood there, staring at me, not moving, not blinking. That same vacant, soulless gaze from the gas station, but now amplified, deeper, like I was staring into a hollow vessel filled with something unspeakable. And then he screamed. A horrifying, inhuman scream tore through the night. It wasn't a voice, it was a howl, a guttural, primal sound that felt like it came from somewhere beneath the earth, like the cry of something that had never known light. It vibrated through my bones, rattling my thoughts, paralyzing my body. It was the kind of sound that didn't belong in this world, the kind of sound that made you question reality itself. Behind me, I could hear movement, the car that had been waiting now closer than ever, its presence suffocating. I didn't need to look to know. There were more of them. The realization struck me like a curse. This was planned. The nails, the town, the truck, the silence, all of it. A trap carefully woven, like an ancient ritual meant to summon fear itself. My mind raced. Panic clawed at my chest. I knew one thing with terrifying clarity. If I stayed in that car, I was going to die.
or worse. Without thinking, without planning, I made a decision born purely from instinct. I grabbed the handle and I pushed the door open with everything I had. The impact knocked the man backward, his body collapsing onto the cold ground with a sickening thud. For a split second, his screams stopped, replaced by silence. That was my chance. I ran, not into the road, not toward the lights, but into the forest, the endless, suffocating darkness where even the moon dared not shine. Branches clawed at my face as I sprinted blindly, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. Every step felt heavier, slower, as if the forest itself was trying to drag me down. But I didn't go far. Just a few feet in, I dropped, flat against the ground, holding my breath, listening. Seconds later, footsteps, multiple, fast. They rushed past me, deeper into the woods, crashing through branches and leaves as they chased something that wasn't there. They thought I kept running. They thought I fled deeper into their domain. A desperate, silent prayer formed in my mind, not to God, but to anything that might still be listening. Let them believe it. Their footsteps faded into the distance, but the forest remained silent, watching, waiting, as if it too was part of something far older than me, something that had been there long before I ever set foot on that cursed road.
I lay there in the dirt, barely daring to breathe. The Ardul Mal'una beneath me felt cold, unnaturally cold, as if it had never known warmth, never known life. My heart pounded so violently, I was certain it would betray me, its rhythm echoing through the silence like a signal to whatever hunted me. But the footsteps, they were gone. For now. Slowly, carefully, I lifted my head. The forest remained still, suffocatingly so. No wind, no voices, not even the distant sound of those men. It didn't feel like safety. It felt like pause, like something had momentarily lost sight of me, but not interest. I forced myself to move. Every instinct screamed at me to run deeper into the woods, to hide forever. But another voice, clearer, sharper, told me the truth. The car, my only chance of survival. Keeping low, I crept back toward the road, every step deliberate, every breath controlled. When I finally reached the edge of the trees, I froze. The road was empty. The cars gone. The white pickup truck gone. Even the headlights that once blinded me had vanished, as if they had never existed. Only my broken car remained, alone, abandoned, like a forgotten offering. I didn't question it. I didn't try to understand. I ran. I rushed to the car, yanked the door open, and grabbed my backpack and phone. My hands shook uncontrollably, but I didn't stop. I didn't think. I just ran again. This time, down the road, away from that place, away from whatever those things were. The darkness seemed endless, stretching before me like a tunnel carved through nothingness. Every shadow felt alive. Every distant sound made my pulse spike. And all the while, I expected them to emerge from the trees, to grab me from behind, to finish what they started. But they never came. After what felt like an eternity, though it couldn't have been more than 30 minutes, I saw headlights in the distance, real headlights, moving, alive. I stumbled into the road, waving my arms like a madman. The car slowed, stopped. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. Her presence felt different, not hollow, not empty, not wrong, human.
truly human. She looked at me with concern, not hunger, fear, not malice. Without hesitation, she let me into her car, her warmth cutting through the cold that had seeped into my bones. She called the authorities, and for the first time since that nightmare began, I felt something close to safety. When the police arrived, I told them everything, every detail, every sound, every face. But as I spoke, I could see it in their eyes. Doubt, skepticism. They inspected my car, noted the damage, took their notes. But there was no sign of the men, no white truck, no footprints, no evidence, nothing. Just a broken car on an empty road. To them, it was just another strange story. To me, it was something else entirely. They gave me a few tickets for my car's condition, almost mocking considering what had just happened. But I didn't care, because I was alive, and deep down, I knew something they didn't. That town, those people, they weren't normal. Maybe they were touched by something ancient. Maybe they were servants of the unseen, bound to that land like guardians of a forgotten curse. Or maybe they weren't people at all. I never found out what they wanted. I never understood why they chose me. But one thing has haunted me ever since. They didn't chase me when I ran down the road. They let me go, as if the real purpose had already been fulfilled. And sometimes, late at night, when the world is silent and still, I remember those eyes, and I wonder, did I truly escape, or was I simply spared?
Before venturing further into the darkness of fear, tell me, where are you right now? Are you trembling? Comment below. New viewers, follow now. I have never been the kind of person who embraces chaos. My life has always been built on structure, careful planning, calculated decisions, and an almost obsessive need for control. Spontaneity, to me, felt like stepping into the unseen, into the domain of majhul, the unknown, where unseen forces twist fate without warning. And yet, everything changed that summer. It began with heartbreak. In late June, I ended a 5-year relationship. It wasn't clean, it wasn't peaceful, it was messy, painful, the kind of ending that leaves invisible scars carved deep into your soul. For weeks, I felt hollow, like something essential had been taken from me. But I wasn't alone in that emptiness. My friend, Sarah, was going through the same thing. She had just ended her own long-term relationship. Somehow, our shared grief became a strange form of comfort. We spent long nights talking, laughing through pain, trying to convince ourselves that we were moving forward, even when it felt like we were stuck in place. Then came Elissa. Elissa was nothing like us. She was different, wild, fearless, drawn to the edges of the world where most people wouldn't dare to go. She lived for adventure, for the thrill of stepping beyond the veil of the ordinary. If Sarah and I were grounded, Elissa was a storm, unpredictable and impossible to contain. So when she invited us on a cross-country road trip, it should have been an easy no. But something inside me, something broken, something restless, said yes. Looking back now, I sometimes wonder if that decision was truly mine, or if it was guided by something darker, something ancient, whispering from beyond the veil of the unseen. The trip began like a dream. At first, I struggled.
The lack of structure made my mind uneasy, like I was drifting too far from something safe. But as the days passed, I began to change. The rigid walls I had built around myself started to crack, and through those cracks, something else crept in. We traveled through endless landscapes, vast countryside, forgotten towns, places that felt untouched by time. Elissa showed us things I never imagined existed. We met strangers, shared stories, drank under unfamiliar skies. It was freedom, or at least it felt like it. Until the barn. We saw it on the second or third day, an abandoned structure standing alone in the middle of overgrown land. It looked wrong, not just empty, but abandoned in a way that felt intentional, like whatever had once lived there had left in a hurry or had been forced out. The earth around it was choked with wild growth, nature reclaiming what had been left behind. The barn itself leaned slightly, its wooden frame strained, as though it were breathing, slowly decaying with every passing moment. Elissa was immediately drawn to it. Of course she was. She begged us to stop, to explore. But something deep inside me resisted. A quiet voice, ancient, instinctive. Don't go in. I tried to reason it away, told myself it was just fear, just imagination fueled by too many stories and late-night thoughts. But fear has a language, and that place was speaking it fluently. I refused at first. I made excuses, trespassing, safety, anything to avoid stepping into that Makan Malun, cursed place. But the truth was simpler. I was afraid of what we might find, or worse, afraid of what might find us. Elissa eventually gave up, though not without protest. We left the barn behind, continuing our journey, but she didn't forget. She kept bringing it up, again and again, like the place had etched itself into her mind, or perhaps called out to her in ways we couldn't hear. Days passed. The trip went on, but something had changed. Because sometimes, when a place calls to you, it doesn't stop until you answer. The days that followed should have erased the unease. They didn't. We traveled farther, deeper into landscapes that felt untouched by time. Mountains that scraped the sky. Empty roads that seemed to stretch into infinity. We laughed, drank, and convinced ourselves that we were free. But Elissa never let the barn go. She brought it up constantly. At first, it was playful, teasing us for being too scared. But over time, something in her tone changed. It became quieter, more insistent, like she wasn't just remembering the place. She was hearing it, calling to her. By the time we started heading back toward civilization, her persistence had worn us down. Or maybe something else had. I don't know why I agreed. Even now, I can't fully explain it. It wasn't just pressure. It felt inevitable. If it looks abandoned, I told her, trying to maintain some control, then we can check it out. The moment I said it, a strange unease settled in my chest, like I had just spoken something into existence, like unseen forces had been waiting for permission. Elissa didn't hesitate. She knew exactly how to get back there. That alone should have been a warning. We found the barn again around 4:30 in the afternoon. The sun still hung in the sky, but its light felt weaker here, like it struggled to reach this place. We parked the SUV at a distance. No one said it out loud, but none of us wanted to get too close. The air felt different, heavy, still, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Alyssa ran ahead, her excitement almost unnatural. Sarah and I followed more slowly, exchanging uneasy glances. Up close, the barn was worse. Vines had overtaken it completely, wrapping around its structure like twisted veins. The wood was cracked and darkened, as if it had been scorched by something unseen. The entire building creaked softly, not from wind, but from its own slow decay. It sounded like breathing. I told myself it was just the structure settling, but deep down, I wasn't convinced. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the scent of rot and dust. Light barely filtered through the broken slats, casting long, distorted shadows across the floor. And then there was the equipment. Strange, rusted, unrecognizable. It didn't look like farm tools, not entirely. Some of it resembled old machinery, but other pieces felt wrong. Twisted shapes, sharp edges, objects that looked more like instruments of ritual than labor. Like something used not for farming, but for something darker, something older. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "This place isn't right," I whispered, but Alyssa didn't hear me, or maybe she ignored it. She moved deeper inside, touching things, examining them with fascination. Sarah followed, though I could tell she was as uneasy as I was. We explored for a while, taking pictures, trying to act like this was normal, but it wasn't. Nothing about this place was normal, and yet we stayed. Eventually, Alyssa turned to us, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't quite place. "Let's check the house," she said. There was a farmhouse connected to the barn, half hidden beneath overgrowth. I hadn't even noticed it at first. That should have been another warning, but by then, it was too late. We were already too deep inside that Makan el Mudlim, dark place, and something unseen was already aware of us. The farmhouse was smaller than I expected, but it radiated a sense of age and neglect that made the barn feel almost inviting by comparison. The door hung crooked on its hinges. I pushed it open slowly, half expecting it to creak loudly, but it didn't. The silence inside was worse. The floorboards were coated with a thick layer of dust, and broken furniture was scattered like casualties of some forgotten battle. A faint smell lingered, musty, metallic, like old blood mixed with decayed wood. Alyssa stepped in first, her flashlight cutting through the gloom. She moved with purpose, almost like she belonged here. "Look at this," she whispered, pointing to a set of symbols carved into the wall near the fireplace. Strange shapes, circles and lines scratched deep into the wood. My stomach sank. They look like ritual markings," I said. The words sounded ridiculous even as I said them, but my unease grew stronger by the second. Sarah shivered behind us. "Maybe we shouldn't be here. This place, it doesn't feel safe." I wanted to agree, but something held me back. The pull of the place, it was magnetic. I didn't understand it. Alyssa ignored us. She walked toward a corner of the room where a trapdoor led downward. She knelt and tried to lift it, but it was stuck. "Help me," she said, her voice sharper now, commanding. We struggled together, finally prying the door open. A staircase descended into darkness. The air from below was cold, unnaturally cold.
and there was a faint smell of iron, sharp and biting. I glanced at Sarah. She shook her head, pale, whispering, "We shouldn't." But Alyssa was already moving down. She didn't hesitate. She shined her flashlight into the darkness, revealing stone walls and a narrow passage leading further underground. My rational mind screamed at me to stop, to turn back, but every instinct, every fear was drowned by something else, an inexplicable fascination. We descended slowly, our footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The deeper we went, the heavier the air felt, until it pressed against our chests like invisible hands. And then we saw it. A room at the end of the passage, circular, walls covered with more symbols, and in the center, pit. Pit filled with water so dark it reflected no light, only shadows. Alyssa stepped closer, peering over the edge. "Do you see it?" she asked, her voice trembling. I looked, and for a moment I thought I saw faces beneath the surface, twisting, screaming, moving just below the black water. When I blinked, nothing. "Maybe it's just the shadows," I said, though I didn't believe it. Alyssa didn't respond. She reached into her backpack and pulled out something small, a charm, an old trinket she claimed she found in the barn. She held it over the pit, and that's when the water started to ripple. Slowly at first, then faster, as if something beneath was aware, waiting. I stepped back. Sarah grabbed my arm. "We need to leave, now!" But Alyssa, she didn't move. And in that moment, I realized the barn, the house, it wasn't just abandoned. It was alive, watching us, waiting.
The ripples in the water grew faster, forming concentric circles that seemed almost unnatural. The air became heavier, colder, so cold that it burned my lungs when I breathed. Alyssa's hand trembled as she held the charm over the pit. It's reacting," she whispered, voice barely audible. "What's reacting? What is this?" I shouted, panic rising. But even as I said it, I saw movement beneath the water. Shadows, long and twisted, slithering like snakes. Faces, hundreds of them, pressed against the surface, mouths opening and closing, eyes hollow and screaming. Sarah screamed, stumbling backward. "We have to leave, now!" I grabbed her arm, but before we could move, the shadows shot upward like black smoke. The water didn't splash, it rose as a wall of darkness, and the room seemed to expand around it, swallowing our lights. Alyssa stepped closer, almost entranced, murmuring something I couldn't understand. The symbols on the walls began to glow faintly, red and pulsating, as if the house itself was alive. Something cold and wet brushed against my hand. I recoiled, nearly falling. I glanced down. A black tendril, like liquid shadow, was reaching toward us from the pit. "Don't touch it! Don't touch it!" Sarah screamed, pulling at me. But Alyssa grabbed the tendril. Her eyes rolled back, and she smiled, a terrifying, unnatural smile. Her voice echoed, though I swear it wasn't hers. "You shouldn't have come." The darkness surged, consuming the room. I felt pressure against my chest, as if invisible hands were pushing, pulling, trying to drag me toward the pit. My flashlight flickered, then died. I heard whispers, hundreds of them all around me. "Join us. Stay. Never leave." Sarah grabbed my hand, dragging me backward. We stumbled over the stone steps, over debris, over shadows that tried to hold us. Alyssa's laughter echoed behind us, high, manic, not quite human. The pit's water churned violently. Then, as if aware of our escape, it suddenly sank back, leaving an eerie calm in its wake.
We ran up the stairs, out of the underground room, and burst into the farmhouse. The door slammed behind us. Outside, the night was still. The barn loomed dark and silent. But the air was different now. Heavy, waiting, watching. We didn't speak. We didn't look back. We ran to the car and drove off. The charm Alyssa had dropped, still sitting on the steps, glowing faintly in the moonlight. And I knew we hadn't seen the last of whatever lived in that house. We didn't stop driving until the barn and farmhouse were swallowed by the darkness behind us. The forest seemed endless, but the road felt familiar, too familiar, almost as if it had always been waiting for us. That night, sleep didn't come. Every shadow in the car shifted unnaturally. Every gust of wind sounded like whispers speaking kalimat mafquda, words lost, meant to summon something beyond. Sarah shivered, clutching her knees. Alyssa stared out the window, silent, but her fingers kept twitching as if tracing symbols in the air. By morning, something had changed, not just in the world around us, but in us. Sarah's eyes were hollow, darkened at the rims. Alyssa, her laughter came back in fits, high-pitched, uncontrollable, as if the shadows had attached themselves to her voice. And I felt it too, a prickling in my mind, like a djinn hovering just out of sight, whispering forgotten truths of terror. Days passed, but the curse followed. Objects in our apartments moved on their own. Shadows lingered long after lights were on. At night, we would hear tapping at the windows, quiet at first, then frantic, like fingernails scraping for release. Alyssa would speak in tongues, words I recognized as ancient Arabic incantations for summoning and binding. She wasn't herself anymore. Then came the dreams, endless, suffocating dreams of water turning to black smoke, of faces in the pit, mouths opening silently in despair. Every time I woke, I could hear the whispers, soft at first, then chanting in unison, "The house remembers, the house waits." And we realized the horrifying truth. The pit wasn't just in the barn, it had followed us, the darkness transferring itself, attaching to our souls. Whatever entity dwelt there, an ancient djinn trapped and hungry, was now free to watch, to manipulate, to haunt. Alyssa finally confessed, eyes wild, that she had heard it, spoken with it. She said it promised immortality, power, but only if we all surrendered. We refused, but the djinn's influence had already seeped into our blood, into our minds. We abandoned plans, relationships, lives. We became nomads of fear, always moving, never resting. And every time we hear water lapping against unseen stones or whispers through the trees, we know it's there, waiting, patient, watching. Because some curses, once touched by human hands, never fade. And the pit remembers everyone who dared to disturb its slumber. Before venturing further into the darkness of fear, tell me, where are you right now? Are you trembling? Comment below. New viewers, follow now. The road stretched like a black ribbon into oblivion, the moon casting fractured shadows over the forest floor. My fiancé and I had been traveling across the US, celebrating our love, with the plan to end this trip under the stars with a proposal. The night air was crisp, carrying with it the faint smell of damp earth, and every sound, a twig snapping, an owl's call, felt amplified, like the wilderness itself was listening.
We had set up an air mattress in the cargo bed of my truck, a strange hybrid of camping and safety. Sleep had always been a fragile thing for her. Ever since a coworker told her about a bear attack on her family, she had developed an acute paranoia of the wilderness. Every gust of wind, every distant rustle made her heart pound. I reassured her constantly, but even I felt the weight of the darkness pressing in, the forest watching, waiting. That night, after hours of hiking and laughter, I finally proposed. She said yes. Stars blinked above like the eyes of ancient jinn observing our fleeting joy. For a brief moment, I felt the serenity of love triumphing over fear. But as the night deepened, I sensed something shift in the shadows, a quiet, deliberate movement outside the truck, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. At first, I thought it a coyote or a deer, but the cadence of the footsteps was unnatural, calculated, human-like, but deliberate in a way meant to intimidate. I watched as a small figure moved silently around the truck, hood drawn, mumbling under their breath in a language I didn't recognize, words that carried the cadence of an incantation, a whispered summoning. I froze, heart hammering. My fiancé was asleep, oblivious to the intruder. I didn't know whether to wake her or confront this being. My priority was her safety. Slowly, I edged closer to the truck's wall, peering over. A woman, small, hooded, moving in eerie, jerky steps. Her mumbling carried a weight, a dark resonance that made the hairs on my neck rise. The forest itself seemed to lean in, swallowing her presence into its shadows. I realized then that this night, meant to be a memory of joy, had been infiltrated by something ancient, watching, waiting for a moment of vulnerability.
The figure circled the truck like a predator, her whispers growing louder, almost melodic but twisted, like the chants of a jinn summoning a curse from some forgotten desert tomb. I could hear the dry, hollow rustle of leaves beneath her feet, each step synchronized with my quickening pulse. Shadows from the moonlight danced across her hooded face, and I could see strands of blonde hair catching the light like pale threads of silk woven with malice. I crouched, clutching a small pocket knife I always carried, knowing it was almost useless against whatever was out there. My fiancée shifted in her sleep. Every instinct screamed at me to protect her. I typed a frantic message into my phone, careful to keep my voice silent. Don't move. Someone's outside. I'll distract them. Start the truck when I give the signal. The hooded woman muttered in that strange tongue again, and the words echoed with a resonance I could feel in my chest, a vibration that seemed to make the air itself thick and heavy, as though the forest had become a barzakh, a liminal space between safety and a nightmare. I noticed her movements were deliberate, almost ritualistic. She wasn't just wandering, she was marking the territory, testing us, and perhaps invoking something unseen. I waited, silent, heart hammering, every nerve on edge. When she passed near the edge of the truck bed, I considered jumping out to confront her, but a sudden gust of wind carried a whisper of a word I couldn't understand, and fear rooted me in place. My fiancée was completely unaware, curled on the mattress, vulnerable. The figure's shadow fell over her side of the truck for a terrifying second, and I realized if she wakes up now, everything could go wrong. The forest seemed to exhale. My only option was to stay hidden, bide my time, and hope the night's terror didn't escalate beyond comprehension.
The hooded woman's pace shifted suddenly, becoming erratic, almost unnatural, as if some unseen djinn was guiding her movements. My stomach knotted with dread. Every shadow around the truck seemed to writhe with a malevolent life of its own. The whispering intensified, low guttural syllables that felt older than time itself, carrying the weight of an ancient curse. I could feel it crawling beneath my skin, like icy fingers of ghoul brushing against my nerves. Then, without warning, she lunged from beneath the truck. Pain exploded in my ankle as a thick branch collided with it, knocking me to the ground. Her shriek, an unholy mix of rage and delirium, pierced the night, carrying the resonance of some otherworldly possession. The forest itself seemed to react, the trees groaning as if in sympathy with her madness. I stumbled back, clutching my knife, but it was a mere talisman against the force of her frenzy. She swung a kitchen knife wildly, and I barely deflected the blade with my arm. The metallic scent of blood, or was it something more ancient, like the rusted essence of cursed steel, filled the air. I shouted to my fiancé, the sound cutting through the darkness. "Start the truck now!" Her hands trembled, fumbling with the keys, but determination replaced fear. I backed away, keeping my eyes locked on the hooded figure. The shadows clung to her like a cloak of malevolent energy, making her form appear larger, more monstrous than it actually was. Then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, she lunged at my fiancé. The roar of the engine shattered the night. My fiancé leapt into the truck, and we sped away, leaving a cloud of dust, broken branches, and screams behind. Her cries faded into the distance, but the echo of her chanting, her inhuman whispers, lingered long after we were gone, an invisible scar on the night, a reminder that the ghoul of that cursed forest had not yet fully released its hold.
The forest receded behind us, but the terror didn't leave. Every mirror-like reflection on the road seemed to shimmer with a shadow that wasn't ours. I kept glancing back, expecting to see her, the hooded figure, possessed by some djinn or cursed spirit materializing from the dust. Her face, half glimpsed in the fleeting moonlight, burned into my mind, pale, wild-eyed, with a grin that belonged to the shayateen. The truck hummed steadily beneath us, but the night felt alive, almost sentient. I could hear faint whispers carried on the wind, voices speaking in ancient Arabic syllables, echoing like the remnants of an exorcism long forgotten. My fiancé clutched the keys like a talisman, trembling but silent, trusting me to navigate both the road and the supernatural menace we had awakened. We reached a clearing, a rare stretch of lighted road, and I dared to breathe. Yet the unease clung to me like a second skin. I felt her presence in every shadow, in every rustle of leaves, like a ghoul stalking its prey. My ankle throbbed, sharp and constant, a reminder of the violence we had narrowly survived. I whispered a protective dua, hoping to shield us from the malignant force that had taken human form. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time seemed warped, and finally civilization appeared. Streetlights flickered ahead, and the normal hum of late-night traffic felt almost alien, a soft protection against the horrors of the wild. But deep inside, I knew the world we left behind in that forest was not bound by ordinary rules. That night, we had brushed against a darkness older than any human memory, a shadow that still lingered in the corners of my mind. We drove in silence, the road stretching endlessly before us, lit by the weak, trembling glow of the street lamps. Every sound, the whisper of the wind through the trees, the distant bark of a dog, even the hum of the truck's engine felt amplified, laden with menace. I kept imagining her, my ex-fiancée, twisted by obsession, emerging from the darkness, her eyes glinting with the fury of a djinn, her hands craving vengeance. By dawn, the first fragile light of morning bled into the sky, washing the night's terror in pale gold. The forest behind us seemed to dissolve into a memory, but I knew it wasn't gone. There are creatures and spirits that exist on the edge of reality, tethered by hatred, envy, and grief. That night, we had encountered one. The marks on my ankle and the echo of her screams were proof enough. Once we reached safety, I called the authorities. My ex was eventually taken to a psychiatric institution, claiming she had planned harm. She didn't deny it. Her mind had been consumed, likely by forces she couldn't control. Or perhaps she had been possessed by something far older than human emotion, a djinn of vengeance. The police were powerless. Laws do not govern the supernatural, and neither do reason or logic. Years have passed, but I still see shadows in the corners of my vision, small movements in the dark that vanish when I focus. My wife, ever vigilant, still checks every social media trace of her, a silent guard against recurrence. We know the past may never fully release its grip. That night in the wilderness left a scar etched not on our bodies alone, but on our very souls, a reminder that some darkness cannot be outrun. And in the deepest, quietest moments, I whisper a dua, praying that whatever haunted us that night remains confined to the void, far from our lives forever.
This is the end of today's terrifying incident. The clock keeps ticking, and the mystery keeps breathing. Subscribe now for more horror-filled nights, if you're not afraid.